In this lecture, we're going to see how we can overload some compound operators. We're going to do the compound addition and the compound subtraction operator. And along the way, I wanted to expose you to the idea that you can reuse other operators to implement your own operator. And the basic idea, everything we're going to do here is going to be based on is that, for example, the plus operator can be implemented in terms of its related compound operator. So the plus operator can be implemented in terms of the addition compound operator, and that's going to make our job a little easier because we're going to be reusing code from other operators we have already done. And this is going to be really cool. So let's look at how we can do this. Here is a simple example of how we can do our compound addition operator. It is going to grab whatever object we have to the left, and it is going to add another point and then store the result in the current point that we are calling this operator on. And this is a binary operator. It's going to have a left operand. It is also going to have a right operand. And in the body, we're just going to be doing the compound addition on our coordinates. We're going to do this on the x coordinate. We're going to do this on the y coordinate. And then we're going to return the left coordinate because that's what we are doing the compound addition on. So when this function returns, we're going to have the left point with the right point added to it. And that's going to be the result that we store back in the left point. I hope this makes sense. We're going to do the same thing for our compound subtraction operator. We're going to have two operands, and we are basically going to do the same thing, just doing the compound subtraction operator. And then we're going to return the left point out of this function here. Now, we're going to have these compound addition and subtraction operators in place. The basic idea here is that we don't have to do the plus and minus operators from scratch, because we have this piece of code here already done and it has already been tested, for example. So we don't have to restart from scratch in our plus and minus operators. And we can reuse our compound operators. That's what we do down here in the operator plus. We're going to set up a left point, and then we're going to return the local point, and we are going to compound add to that the point that we have to the right here. And the end result is going to be that we have the 2 points added up. The result is going to be stored in this point P, and then we're going to return it from the function, and this is going to work really well. But notice that we are reusing the code we already had on top here, and this is really cool. We're going to do the same logic on our subtraction operator here. We're going to set up a local point, which is going to be a copy of the left point. We're going to store that in here, and then we're going to compound subtract from it, and the result is going to be stored back in our point object here, which is a local point, and then we're going to return this from the function. And the effective result of these operations here is really going to be just like we add 2 points left and right, and then we're going to have the result stored back in our point here that we return from this function. Now that you know this, we're going to head over to Visual Studio Code and play with this a little more. Okay, so here we are in our working folder. The current project is compound operators and reusing other operators. We're going to grab the code we had in the last lecture because we want to use that as a starting point and improve on that. And then we're going to put that in our current project. And we're going to open this little guy in Visual Studio Code by dragging and dropping here. This is going to do. And we going to take a look at the main CPP file. We have a bunch of points that we are subtracting and adding here. Let's take out what we have on top, and we're going to leave out these. We're going to change this if we happen to need that. But for now, we're going to head over to the header file for our point class, and then we're going to do our compound operators. We're going to first leave in the plus and minus operators that we have. This is just going to work fine. And we're going to do our compound operators on top here. They are binary operators, and we're going to do them as non-members because this is easier. And it falls in line with what we have been doing so far in our point class here. So we're going to do them as non-members. But note that you can also do them as member functions if that's what you want. So we're going to make them inline because they are done in the header file to not introduce ODR violations in our code. And by compound adding 2 points, we want to get a return value by reference, and that's going to be a point type. So we're going to return by reference here, and we're going to say operator plus equals, because that's what we want to do here. It's going to take 2 points. The first one is not going to be passed by const reference because we're going to be modifying it and adding stuff to it. So we're going to pass it by non-const reference. Let's do point reference, and we're going to call this left. The right one is going to be by const reference because we're really not going to be modifying it. We're just going to be reading from it. So it's going to be passed by const reference here. We're going to say right, and we're going to fall in our body. What we're going to do is modify the coordinates of each point. So we're going to say left mx, and we're going to compound add right mx. That's what we're going to do here. And we're going to do left my and compound add right my. Okay, this is something we might want to do. And in this case, suppose you want to use the result of this addition in some other parts of your application. You might want to return by reference, but that's not really important. But in this case, we're going to do this. We're going to return left by reference. And notice that we have a bunch of squiggly lines. You might have guessed the reason. We are accessing the private sections of a point class, but this is a freestanding global function, which is not a member function. So it doesn't have direct access to the private sections of the class. And for this to work as we expect, we need to take this and mark it as a friend. We're going to do this. We're going to say friend. Let's say friend properly. And we're going to put the signature or the header in. And if we go down, this should work now. This is working. We're going to do the compound subtraction operator. It's going to be similar. We're just going to be changing the operator to minus equals. And we're going to be doing compound subtraction here. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to mark this as a friend for this to be working on our private member variables from our point class. We're going to say friend, and we're going to put the header in. And if we go down, we're going to see that this is going to work. Now that we have this, we can really try this out. We're going to go in the main CPP file, and we are going to change the operations we are doing. We're just going to do compound addition. Let's do this. And we're not going to be doing what we were doing before. We're going to set up another point, for example. We're going to call it point P3, and that's going to be a 5, 5. That's what we're going to have n for x and y coordinate. And then we're going to say P1 plus equals, and we're going to do P2. This is going to be valid syntax now because we support these operators. And we're going to say P2 minus equals P3. Let's see what we get from here. And we're going to print P1 and P2 because these are going to be storing the results of our operations here. So we're going to print P1 and P2. Let's say point 2 here. And we're going to say P2. That's what we're going to print here. And try to guess what we're going to get if we print these things in our program here. Point 1 is going to store the result of this operation. We're going to take whatever we have in point 2. We're going to add that to what we have in point 1. And the result is going to be stored back in point 1. So point 1 should be 30, 30. That's what we expect. And for point 2, we're going to take what we have in point 2 and subtract what we have in point 3. And the result is going to be stored back in point 2. So we should have a 15, 15 inside. That's what we're going to put here. That's what we expect to get from our program here. Let's build and run it and see if this is working as we expect. The build is good. We can clear and bring up a new PowerShell window we can use to run our program. We're going to run the program and we're going to get 30 and 15. This is what we expect. So our operators are working as we expect and everything is cool now. Now, what we want to do is to reuse our compound operators to do the plus and minus operators here because we have the code here. Suppose this code has been written and it's really working, it's been tested for a long time, and we don't want to start from scratch if we want to do our plus and minus operators. So we're going to figure out a way to reuse the compound assignment operators and do our plus and minus operators. And the result is really simple. We're going to grab what we have on the left and we're going to use that to set up a local point. And it's going to be built from the left point that we have on top here. This is going to be a copy constructor that we call the default one because we don't have one declared for our class here. So we're going to be doing member-wise copy. This is just fine here because we're not doing any dynamic memory allocations in our class. So this is going to be just fine. And then after this, we're going to return p plus equals write. Okay, so what this is going to do is reuse our compound addition operator, and the result is going to be as if we had added the left and right point and stored the result in a temporary point that we return from this function here. So this is going to work. We're going to do the same in our subtraction operator. We're going to grab the code here and copy and paste it. And all we have to do is call the compound subtraction operator, and this is going to do what we want. Now, let's try out our addition and subtraction operators to see if they work as they should. We are going to go on top here, and we're going to say stdcout p1 plus p2, and we're going to store the result in a temporary point that we print out through stdcout. We're going to say p1 plus p2, and we're going to do stdendl, and we're going to go down and say p2 minus p1, or minus p3, we can do whatever we want. And then we're going to print the result of this on our terminal. We're going to say p2 minus p3, and we're going to put our new line character. On the first line here, we expect to get a 30. So we're going to get 30, 30. And on the second line, we're going to get a 15 printed out because 20 minus 5 is a 15. So let's do this. We're going to get a 15 and a 15. And we're going to put a little separator after this to be able to see this clearly on our terminal window. We're going to do stdendl, and we're going to build this with GCC as we always do to make sure that our operators are working as we expect. We're going to run Rooster, and we're going to get exactly what we expect. On the first printout, we're going to get 30 and 15 printed out because that's going to be the results. And down here, we're going to use our compound operators, and we're going to get 30 and 15 printed out. And this is really cool. This is really all I had to share in this lecture, showing you how you can overload the compound addition and subtraction operators. Hopefully, this is going to lay ground to how you could overload any compound operators in your C++ program. The trick is to be able to store the result back and have those available for whoever wants to use that point. And that's going to be really cool. We also saw that we could reuse operators. For example, we have done our plus and minus operators in terms of the compound operators that we have done before. And this is going to offload the work from our operators here. And the heavy lifting is really going to be done in our compound operators. And this is really cool. Let's clean this up a little bit. And this is going to just do. Let's build again and see if we have no boo-boos. The build is good. We can clear and run Rooster. And this is giving us the results that we expect. We are going to stop here in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to learn about custom type conversions. And we're going to be able to transform between types. For example, you can transform from a point to a number type or do the reverse. And that's going to be really cool. Go ahead and finish up here and meet me there.